Today I'm going to help you get started doing video on your Olympus camera. And today I'll just be using the Olympus Pen F, but the settings will be very similar, if not exactly the same, on the EM10 Mark II and the EM5 Mark II. And then similar across all of the Olympus cameras. Now there's a few ways to record video on your camera, but essentially there's two. One is you just move the mode dial into the movie mode and then you hit the record button and the camera will start to record video. The other way is while you're taking pictures, say you're in a photo mode like aperture priority or shutter priority, you can hit the record button and the camera will just record video. Now the main difference between the two ways of recording is primarily if you're in a photo mode and you hit the record button, the camera is going to take over the exposure controls and not let you change anything in that respect in terms of ISO, in terms of aperture, and the shutter speed. The camera is going to take control over those things regardless of what photo mode you're in. So you could be in aperture priority, have it stop down wide open. The camera's not going to care when you hit the record button. It's going to take over that. The same thing happens when you're in movie mode. So if you move this dial to movie mode and you hit the record button, by default, the camera is going to take over the exposure. So auto ISO, aperture, and shutter are all going to be controlled by the camera. And it's going to be doing that simple matrix or average weighted metering. And for the most part, it does a very good job. And you really don't need to worry. Just record video, right? But if you want to start to get into video and start doing better videos, you need to understand some of the settings and why they're all there, because there's so many settings on this camera, and our Olympus cameras are very, very capable video cameras. I would say 99% of the videos I do for my YouTubes and for my personal use and my professional work, I use Olympus cameras. Alright, so I've done a full factory reset on the camera and I've put the mode dial into movie mode. And let's just take a look at the live view or the back of the screen and see what's new here as opposed to the photo modes. Now the first thing you'll notice here at the top is that we have the level meters for our sound. So as you can see, as I'm talking, the microphones are picking up and then it's registered there. And then we have the TC or time code settings, and it's set to DF. And I'm not going to talk about this that much. That's really only important if you're syncing multiple cameras together in a professional environment. And that's really a whole nother video. And then the default setting is continuous autofocus, auto ISO. And then down here we have the movie icon indicating that that's where our mode dial is set to. And then here at the bottom we have a row of special effects that I'll touch on as we record video. And then up here you have the, up here you have what it says MIS1, which is the movie image stabilization is set to 1, which means it's set to do sensor shift and digital image stabilization. And we'll talk about that later. Then the picture profile mode, but then over here you'll notice a little slide out menu that you can control, and it gives you access to other things. Like this would be the power zoom, I believe. I still can't read it even with my glasses. But then the next thing is the microphone. So if I thought the levels here were too high, I can turn it down like so. And you can see now it says -10, and now my voice is not peaking the meters into the red area. But a good place to be is when the meters are peaking just a little bit into the red, but not all the way over. So it looks like in this case, a -2 would be a setting I would use. And then below that is you can tap here. It'll go back to the menu or the silent menu. I think they call this the silent menu. And this would be the exposure compensation, and I'll show you that when we start recording. And then just very briefly, it shows that we're in program mode by default. And then right down here, you can see it says full HD, FHD F, which means fine. And that's one of the quality settings that I'll show you later. And then just below that in fine print, it says 60p. So the default setting for video is full HD, which is the 1080p in fine mode, and we're going to be recording at 60p or 60 frames per second. And that's going to be important later. All right, and then just below that is the amount of time that we can record with these settings. So the camera's telling me that on my memory card I have 2 hours and 18 minutes left or available for recording video. All right, now let's go into the menu and look at some of the movie settings. So we'll go here, scroll over, and come down, and it's menu I. Okay, so in the movie menu we have several settings here. And the first thing you'll see is that it defaults to P or program mode. So if we click over to the right, you can see that in movie mode we have P, A, S, and M available. So we can shoot in aperture priority, shutter priority, or in full manual. And generally I like to shoot in full manual when I'm doing videos, particularly like when I can control the lighting like I have here in my studio. When I'm outdoors, I prefer to shoot in shutter priority. And I'll explain that again later. There's so many things here in movie mode, but let's just leave it in program mode for now because the camera does a good job on its own. And then here we can turn the microphone on or off. And just a note on the microphone, generally speaking, the in-camera audio is never very good. And unless you record audio separately like I do, I have this little lav mic here, it's very difficult to get good audio from the camera. So just use it as a reference audio, and then, or if you're just doing something casual, it's fine. You know, you can kind of still make out what people are saying or the kind of action that's happening, but it's definitely never studio quality audio. Honestly, I have enough trouble just getting good audio when I do record separately, never mind using the in-camera mics. The next thing is the volume limiter, and what it does is basically if it detects a very loud noise or a sudden loud noise like a siren or a dog barking, it's going to temporarily lower the recording level down so that it doesn't clip that sound or make it distorted. So it does that digitally, and it works okay. You know, it's all we have really on these cameras, and so I always leave that on. Then the next thing here is the wind noise reduction. And I always leave this off because I didn't find it effective at any setting, to be honest. And if you set it too high, it starts to make your voice or the sounds sound a little bit tinny or hollow. Because basically I think it works by cutting out certain frequencies that are right around that wind noise level. So just leave that off. And then the time code settings, I talked about this. We can just ignore that for now. We're not going to be syncing multiple cameras together. And honestly, if you understand time codes or need to use them, you're probably not watching this tutorial anyway. So we'll just skip that. I never use them personally. And then the info settings, this is what displays in the live view when you're recording movies or before you hit the record button. And I like to leave all of these on. Sometimes I turn off the histogram because it does take up a good chunk of the bottom of the screen, but for the most part I just leave these all on. Okay, the next setting are the movie specification settings, and this is where you choose the movie settings you want to use or that you'll have access to when you're in the live control panel, and you'll see that when we go back to that. But for now, let me show you what the settings are. Basically you have full HD, and you have 4 panels here that you can save to, and then you can also record in HD resolution. HD is 720p, full HD is 1080p, and maybe the EM10 Mark III has 4K now. I'm not sure, I don't have that camera, but for our cameras here that I use, full HD and HD are my only options. And then we have an option for compression or bit rate, and this refers to the quality of the video to some extent. And honestly, I record in fine mode most of the time. Like I'm recording this video in full HD fine. This camera here, I have it set to actually full HD normal. And the reason I do that is because it really makes the file sizes a lot smaller. And recording in superfine and all I really didn't see much difference between the two. The only time it might make a difference is when you're recording fast action, you know, like maybe a dog running or a sports game, you know, with players running around the field, or maybe in a landscape you have lots of trees moving with the wind blowing. In those situations, yeah, you want to record in all-I if you can, but you're going to need a big memory card in that. So let me show you what I mean. Because remember back here, we have 2 hours and 18 minutes on this, I think this is a 32 gig card, I can't remember. But look what happens when I change this to, say, all-I. Now I only have 53 minutes of record time left on this same video card. So just keep that in mind when you want to choose a movie setting. All right, and then, you know, so if you change a movie setting, you know, look at the time left. If you want maximum record time, let me show you. You can put this into normal mode. And you can see now we got 3 hours and 52 minutes of record time on the same card. So honestly, even normal mode is pretty good, but I just shoot in fine. But you may see at time to time, like you'll see little blocks or blockiness when people are moving around. That's because the compression bit rate is very high, meaning it's been set to normal, or they're recording fast action and they're recording in normal compression bit rate. But again, for the most part, you'll be fine. All right. Now, the other thing I noticed here is that number 1 and number 3 are exactly the same. So what I'll do is I'm just going to change number 3 to all-I, just like so. And I'll show you where all that stuff is in the live control panel. Okay, movie effect on. Those are those special effects that I showed you at the bottom of the screen. That's these down here. So you can change the color profile mode, you can change, or you can add some old-time antique kind of film look to it. And this is a motion blur kind of effect, and this is a digital zoom over here. And I'll show you those in real time when we come back. But if I turn this off, you'll notice that this bar goes away, and you can now see the exposure compensation meter. But personally, I normally have it off, but it's not a big deal either way. Now, movie plus photo mode, what that is it allows you to take pictures while you're recording a movie. So if I'm recording a movie and I'm in movie photo mode 1, I can push the shutter button. It'll take a picture without interrupting the movie. But basically all it's doing is it's grabbing a still frame from the movie. It's not taking a real picture. It's just taking a frame out of the movie. So you're going to get a 2 megapixel picture, a 1980 by 1080 resolution picture. And it's going to have all the same exposure settings and everything as the movie at that moment in time. But however, there is a mode 2. And mode 2 actually will take a raw picture or a superfine JPEG or whatever you have set for the quality settings for your pictures in the exposure settings you have for movie. But it'll stop the movie, take a full 20 megapixel image. In this case, on EM10 and EM5, it'd be a 60 megapixel, but it'll take a full resolution picture and then start the movie again after it's done taking the picture. And again, it's not something I use a lot, but something that might come in handy depending on what your workflow is or what you're doing or how you're recording, etc. But you do have that option. Me personally, I like to just leave it in mode 1. And then finally, the shutter function, mode 1 and mode 2. Mode 1 basically means you push the shutter button and it'll take a picture relative to whatever mode you were in the movie plus photo mode. So that's all that is. But if you put it to mode 2, you're telling the camera, forget about taking pictures, just make the shutter button start and stop the video. So you're going to lose the picture taking ability in video mode when you have this set to mode 2. Alright, so that's all I wanted to cover in the menu system and the live view, and there's still a lot of things I need to go over. I haven't even touched on, frames per second or the 24p, 30p, 60p, and then using that in shutter priority or aperture priority and what happens and what's the best scenario. But we're close. I think I can cover that maybe in one more video and then we'll be done. But hopefully this will get you started or give you some idea of where all the settings are. And then if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.